sports nutrition, the most important thing to keep in mind is that food is fuel for you, okay? So the healthier the food that you eat, the better you're going to perform when you're out doing your sport. People like to think of sports nutrition as being machinery. You know, your body's your machine and you want to take care of it as best as you can so that when you're out there performing, you do your best. If you focus on whole grains, lean proteins, healthy fats, and of course keeping yourself really well hydrated, you want to make sure you're drinking enough water, then your body's going to repay you by functioning properly when you're out there performing, in your case rowing, which is a pretty intense sport. It's also really important for you to keep in mind that no matter what you're eating, it's really, really important for you to get as many calories as you need to sustain a healthy amount of physical activity and a healthy weight. If you're eating less than that, your body will not be able to function properly and it'll break down muscle, you'll feel fatigued, and you won't be able to perform as well. So keep that in mind. Healthy options whenever possible, like this wonderful, wonderful soup, and make sure that you are eating enough to sustain physical activity. So in terms of hydration, people generally say that you drink about 1.5 to 2 liters per day, and that's sufficient, but it really depends on your body size, how much physical activity you're doing. So look at the color of your urine and make sure that it looks pale. You want it to be kind of whitish yellow. If it starts to get dark, it means that you're getting dehydrated, okay? So for athletes, it's really important for you to be hydrated consistently throughout the day. You don't want to let yourself get dehydrated because then you have to drink even more water and your performance is going to suffer. So be hydrating yourself consistently. If your event lasts very long, how long do you guys normally row out for?
Paddle.
Hour and a half. Paddle. An hour and a half. So with an hour and a half of rowing out in the sun, using a lot of effort, you might probably need some electrolyte replacements because you're sweating, and so you might be losing some of that sodium in your body that helps you perform. So some coconut water or a Gatorade might help. If you're exercising for less than 60 minutes, water is probably okay, but for people that exercise for a long period of time, we want to make sure that they get those electrolytes replaced as well. If you exercise for even longer than that, say like 2 hours, or your intensity is really high, you might benefit from having a quick carbohydrate snack that you can eat while you're exercising. So like a gel pack, a banana, things that are going to be fast and you're going to be able to digest really quickly. The reason for that is because carbohydrates are the main fuel of your body. Your body needs carbohydrates. Don't let people tell you that carbs are bad for you and they're going to make you fat or anything like that. You need to eat them because your body uses them for energy. So if you're exercising for 2 hours very intensely, you need to refuel your body with carbohydrates so that you have the energy and you don't take it from muscle, which we want to keep so that we get better at our sport. Carbohydrates should be 60% of your diet normally, but the amounts depend on your weight, activity, etc. The more physical activity you perform, the more carbohydrates you should eat, and those should be, again, from healthy sources like whole grains, legumes, fruits, and vegetables. If you're exercising for a long period of time, you can refuel glycogen if you're very concerned. Glycogen is the storage form of carbs in our body. So, you know, all the fruit and the bread and the garbanzo beans that you eat gets used and then stored as glycogen in your body. And when you exercise, it's important to replace that. But if your intensity is, you know, moderate and not super vigorous, then your body will replace it normally just with eating, and you don't really have to focus too much on that. Like I said, and she was asking what you should eat before exercising, make sure that you do have carbohydrates before, you know, oatmeal, banana, something like that. Do not skip breakfast. Some people will tell you, oh, your body's going to perform better if you skip breakfast, or you're going to burn more fat if you skip breakfast. Don't skip breakfast. It'll make you crash. It'll make you feel tired. Your body actually, contrary to popular belief, does not use fats. If you have not eaten a carbohydrate before, it can't physically burn that with metabolism. So eat your carbohydrates. That's one of the main things that my exercise physiology teacher would tell us. Eat carbohydrates, healthy carbohydrates, but eat them, especially before breakfast. So you could have, some oatmeal, a banana, or some fruit and yogurt, that type of thing, and that would help.
What might be some less desirable carbohydrates?
So if you're eating Pop-Tarts for breakfast, that's probably not a good idea, right? Pork buns? I love pork buns.
What about rice? So is rice a good?
So rice is white rice, I'm
Yeah,
assuming.
white rice, yes.
It's better if you can eat the whole grain version of rice. So, brown rice, for example, would be better. But at the same time, I like to tell people, food is fuel. So if the majority of your diet is balanced, then you can probably fit in white rice, and it would be, you're not going to die because you eat white rice instead of brown, But brown rice does promote good digestion and blood sugar control, so keep that in mind. But in terms of exercise, really, white rice would be okay. Pork bun, I love them though. But you can, every once in a while you can eat a pork bun, but it might not give you the best fuel for exercise.
So nutrition-wise, how would you compare white rice with brown rice?
So calorie-wise, they're both the same. They're about 225 calories in a cup. But brown rice has fiber, has iron. It's just better for your body in general because all the vitamins and minerals and the fiber haven't been washed out. I know that rice now gets some of the vitamins get added, but the fiber's gone and the iron is gone. And iron is important for women because we have periods every month, so we need to replace that as well. So that's how good they compare, which is why I'm saying, it's not the end of the world if you don't like brown rice, but it is better for you.
So if you don't have any sugar problem, you can continue eating white rice, right?
Yeah, you're fine, but try to incorporate other things that are healthy for you. If you really like white rice, and Asian and Hispanic people like me do, eat more vegetables. Just do a trade-off. It's about finding the right diet for you.
So brown rice is actually going to make you feel more satiated also because of the fiber content, so you may not end up eating as much either because you'll have a sense of fullness.
But if he's working out very much, you might need to eat a little bit more.
I just cannot keep the weight. That's
What?
the
He
problem.
doesn't have a problem.
So I've been eating a lot, and I cannot keep the weight.
Do you
He's
lose weight?
one of the lucky ones.
Yeah. Oh, if you maintain.
I maintain my weight. I don't lose a lot.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Some people would argue that with brown rice or more whole grain things, sometimes there's more toxins involved because it's more cleansed to have the stripped down version.
Why?
But just some people say that. I'm just throwing that out there.
Well, there aren't any toxins in those foods, though.
Well, even in quinoa, there's apparently a toxin that needs to be rinsed off of that grain, that particular grain.
But you could also argue that the processing
Right.
would introduce.
And I would say, there are lots of other rice alternatives. There's other grains that are popular now.
Yeah, if you wanted to eat things like quinoa or bulgur or buckwheat, that would work too. But,
And maybe now's the time, since everyone's thinking about carbohydrates too, and address the glycemic index and how that makes a difference.
Right,
It's too
so-
jumping ahead, unless you're going to already talk about that.
no, well, in terms of glycemic index, if you have blood sugar control problems, then you would probably benefit from eating more whole grains. And in general, we want to eat more whole grains. For an athlete, sometimes it's easier to eat the carbohydrates that are actually higher in glycemic index because they're released faster into the body and they give you the energy that you need immediately to perform. And it really depends on the situation. Like if you're rowing for 2 hours and you have a gel pack and you drink that, it'll help you faster than having, like a whole grain bread.
Just another quick question. Just before a race, We tend to eat a lot of carbs.
Yeah, I'll go
Is
into
that-
carb loading, yeah, to make sure that's, okay, so anyway, just work with the carbohydrates that you can eat and that are good for your diet. Try to incorporate healthier choices, but, you know, also keep in mind what you like to eat and make your diet individual for you.
One more question.
Yes.
What exactly is an electrolyte drink?
An electrolyte drink is like a Gatorade
I know,
because
but
it
what
has
is it?
sodium, potassium, water, and a little bit of sugar. So
So
it'll
why
help.
is it better than drinking water? I mean, say if I add
Only if
some water,
you're-
salt in the water and.
No, only if you, yeah, you could make it at home if you wanted to, you know. But only if you are exercising for a long period of time and very, very intensely. So if you're doing less than 60 minutes or your pace is, you know, slower, then you can probably just use water. But if you're sweating a lot, you're losing sodium that you use for muscle contractions and for activity. So you could mix your own if you wanted to.
If you want a recipe for homemade electrolyte, I can give it to Shirley.
Yeah.
I will drink cocktails.
Breakfast is coffee. All right, so I'm gonna talk about carb loading now, since Shirley told me you guys are interested in carb loading. So, how are you guys carb loading right now? Explain what your method is when you carb load.
I'm gonna say right now that practice is a little bit aerobic, but the race itself is not aerobic because it only lasts 2.5 minutes or so. It's 500 meters. So there's really not a great need to carb load for what we're trying to do. And
But on race day, before race, that's a whole day. Okay, so what do you think?
just have a good normal dinner, and that's
So you guys do a bout of like very highly intense.
very high
food.
intense and very short.
Okay, so you're not having the whole time.
Right, and even to address the electrolyte issue, it's nice to have a little bit more out here because it can be hot. And
Yeah.
we're gonna be out here for an hour and a half, but again, it's not continuous either. We do have. a little
Okay,
breaks in
so
between.
yeah, that plays into what I was saying, where if your intensity isn't super high, then you don't necessarily need the electrolytes. It could be water too, but it depends on really how sunny it is outside, humid, etc. Carb loading is mostly for endurance athletes, athletes that are, you know, running for extended periods of time, or if you were rowing for extended periods of time. So what he's saying is correct in the sense that if you do like very highly intense 2 minutes, you might not necessarily benefit from carb loading. But if you're still looking to push yourself, maybe you're a runner on your free time, or you do other exercises other than this, then you could benefit from carb loading. However, the research isn't super strong, but I'm going to explain how to do it anyway, so you guys are doing it correctly if you do choose to do so. Basically, when you carb load, you want to decrease the amount of carbohydrates you eat for, you know, say 7 days before your race. You eat less carbohydrates and you exercise from moderate to high intensity because you need to drain the carbohydrates from your body before you do the refeeding stage, which is, you know, say 3 days before your exercise, and then eat more carbohydrates and exercise a little bit, but not very intensely. You need to deplete before you refuel. So sometimes people will be like, oh, well, I carb load because the day before I eat a bunch of pasta, but that doesn't necessarily help. You need to deplete first.
We never heard that you're supposed to deplete.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't.
I don't think people do deplete.
So, yeah, your cells need to be primed so that they can suck it in first, which a lot of people don't know. So that's why I wanted to go into it.
Yeah, more about race day. So the race itself is maybe 3 or 4 races throughout the day, or 2 days. So, you know, you're supposed to get your rest, hydrate the day before. But
Yes.
I think the question I have is in terms of performance, we're kind of figuring out if you want to eat lightly during the day, but I noticed like after lunch, everybody gets like starving because they maybe had 1 or 2 races, so they load up a big meal. And I think that first race after lunch seems to be like your napping.
Yeah, that's true.
So I kind of want to know, like, because you ate so much that, you know, you're like, I'm ready for a nap. But-
So you have the eat the lunch part and then you have a race after
You have at
lunch.
least 2 races after, so it seems to be the first race after lunch is like, what happened? Everybody sleeping? Or
Well, yeah, you know, when
So-
you eat high amounts of food, the insulin spikes up and then you kind of feel a little bit
So
groggy.
really, should you just
You could focus
eat
on
lightly all day?
make sure that you eat well the day before and the days following up to the race. You want to eat well, you want to be very well hydrated. Probably if you're going to have a race after lunch, try to eat a little bit, you know, smaller throughout the day, smaller, more frequent meals throughout the day. And then once you're done with the race, then you can pay out as much as you can.
I just want to bring up, a classic experiment in exercise physiology that you can be exercising, and then if you take a half-hour break and have something very sugary, like there's the lots of things that we have at the race tent, then if you try and get back to that activity, your blood sugar will actually drop because of the insulin trying to pack away energy. Okay, so we're not really in mobilization mode anymore. We're like kind of relaxing and packing away energy. And then when you get back on the boat after that bout of something sugary, you're going to be very jittery. And you might have felt that at times before.
They also don't recommend that you have high sugar things at least 15 to 20 minutes before you're exercising if you're at rest, because it prevents your body, the insulin prevents your body from using the fat stores in your body, which have a lot of energy packed into them. So if you're efficient, you want to minimize all the really high glycemic index carbs so that your body can use the fat as well, and you can push yourself to the extreme. Well, no, it's not necessarily not to lose weight, but for performance.
So
If
should
you
you
have some fat cells.
eat that sugar thing right before you get on the boat, or?
If you're gonna use if you want to top off so you can have some fuel, what you can do is, instead of being at rest, like sitting at your lunch or whatever, have like a snack with carbohydrates in it, but be like active, you're like stimulating the release of different hormones that will allow you to use those fat cells as well and utilize the carbs that you've had for activity. It's just when you go into the resting period where your body kind of resets. So.
Well, I'll give you guys an example. When we're marshalling, it's not the time to be eating anymore because we're going to warm up a little bit. And so we're going to be moving around, and then we're going to be sitting for maybe a half an hour right there before we get on the boat. So that's really not the time to be eating anything when we're warming up to get ready to marshal.
So we just cancel lunches and just provide.
Just have something small. Have something small.
Yeah.
It's about balancing that blood sugar level, and as we get older, it's a little more difficult for our bodies to actually do that. It's called homeostasis, where everything that we're trying to do is a balancing act, our body temperature and those things. So, if you have a big lunch, hopefully we don't have to race, within an hour of that, so we have time to balance our blood sugar out again, and then we get moving around and wake up again. So that's probably okay at the timing of it, because they always give us a little lunch break.
Yeah, just try to minimize, make it small. You can focus more on the proteins and the fats if you're hungry, so that they won't, affect your blood sugar as much and your fatigue levels. And have a little bit of carbs as well. It's important. In terms of protein is a highly debated nutrient in fitness, especially in the weightlifting world. Some people will tell you that you need up to 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, which is a huge amount of protein. So don't eat that much protein if someone's told you that, because it can overtax your kidneys in the long run. So just eat a normal amount. For strength training, they recommend 1.4-ish to 1.7. For people that do endurance, it's a little bit less, 1.2 to 1.4 grams per kilogram. So if your weight is 64 kilograms, you multiply that by, ballpark 1.3 to 1.5. And that should be enough. So if you're really interested in calculating how much protein you need, you can do that. But a general healthy diet with lean proteins should pretty much cover you. You should be fine. So examples of lean proteins that you can eat are things like, chicken, turkey, fish, and then there are other proteins like, tuna. Salmon isn't that lean, but it has fats that are good for you, so you should be eating more of those. Fish, poultry. poultry, whatnot. Those proteins are more easily digested and used for muscle, the ones that come from animal protein. However, we are focusing on plant-based diets for general health. So if you can get protein from things like garbanzo beans and legumes, that's really good for you too. So my suggestion is to always combine those two. Don't just say, oh, I'm only gonna eat animal protein because it's easier for my body to make into muscle. Eat a variety of things so that your body gets a lot of different nutrients from many different foods, and that's the best way to go. Fats. People are always worried about fats because they say that fats make you fat and they don't eat them, but that's not true, okay? Fats do not make you no pointing.
They're eating fat.
I don't eat
That's your problem.
Fats are actually very good for you, okay? They're used for hormones, they're used for body temperature regulation, they're used to keep your organs safe. And if you're a woman, you need fat so you can reproduce healthily, have your period, have kids, that type of thing as well. So it's very important for you to eat fats. And when we say eat fats, we mean fats from healthy sources like avocado, olive oil, nuts, that type of thing. We try to eat oil. So try to eat healthy fats. Don't cut them out because you're afraid that they're going to make you fat. The fat in salmon is great for you. But if you want to cut back on fat, try to cut back on, fried chicken and chips and, butter. But you can still eat ice cream occasionally. It's not going to kill you, it's important to have an overall healthy diet, but at the same time, you can have a little cupcake every week. It's fine. It's about living life as well. And I always tell people this.
It's important to notice it's what you do most of the time that matters.
Yes.
Most of the time.
And and that's a good thing to keep in mind for athletes as well, because as athletes we're always thinking, well, if I do this, then I'm not going to perform like this at the gym, and I shouldn't be eating this or whatever. But we're people, and then we're athletes, so have fun with life and with food as well. Another thing I get asked frequently is whether or not you need supplements, and some people, are really into the supplement industry, protein powders, creatine, branched chain amino acids, and whatnot. There is research that shows that they can be somewhat helpful if you're like a weightlifter, but really the main focus is have a healthy diet, eat a variety of foods, make sure you're eating enough. Some people like the convenience of protein powders because, maybe you don't eat enough and you're trying to maintain your weight, and that just helps you to boost up the calories and the protein. But you don't need it. You don't need to spend money on these supplements to be healthy and to be a good athlete. You can get it from all the foods that you eat normally throughout the day. Yes?
How about shrimp and prawns?
Oh, those are great. Shrimp is
Great,
great.
see it? Get up. It's great.
Wait a minute. Is the shrimp cooked in butter or is it fried?
No, just cooked,
Just steamed?
Seeds.
Okay. Then shrimp is a great source of lean protein.
Love you.
She didn't mention prime
Dude,
rib.
I can eat it, okay?
Well, okay, here's the thing about cholesterol. A lot of people still worry about cholesterol. People's cholesterol in their blood does not go up very much from intake of dietary cholesterol. So before, the research thought that eggs and shrimp, things that were high in cholesterol, would make your blood cholesterol high. But now we know that it's actually saturated fat, trans fats, all the high fat foods that affect your blood cholesterol. And we also know that genetics play a large role. So if you eat shrimp, don't be turned off because it has cholesterol. If you eat eggs, don't be turned off because it has cholesterol. They're lean. They're not going to make your blood a block of fat, okay? If you actually eat a lot of, saturated fat, like fried pork, fried meat, a lot of whole milk all the time, then that would probably affect you, but not shrimp, certainly.
So, how many eggs can you safely eat in a week?
It depends on your physical activity level and how many calories you need. There are people that, some of the studies have had people eat like, I don't even, like 4 eggs a day and see no fluctuations in people's blood cholesterol. Not a lot of people eat 4 eggs a day, so, you know, I mean, 2 would probably be fine.
And what else are you eating the rest of the day?
Yeah.
Looking at the whole picture.
I usually eat a lot of bread. Bread is my staple. Bread and rice is my staple. And vegetables, a lot of vegetables, but a small amount of meat. I do eat meat every single day, but a small amount.
Okay. So mostly plant-based. You do eat a lot of refined, is the bread that you eat whole grain or is it
Whole
like?
grain.
Yeah, you might
Wheat.
pour some of the healthier fats and nuts in your diet if you want
Yeah.
to boost your calories. So looking at some healthier fats if you're worried about keeping your weight on.
But the good thing is I'm not losing. I'm keeping.
Yeah. Have you always been the way you are? Then, you know, I would.
Well, I was 110, I'm 115 now, so
Some people are just thinner, you know, and some people are a little bit thicker. I mean, there's genetics at play as well. Just you want to go to the doctor, get your blood checked, make sure you're healthy, don't freak out about anything. Yes.
So you mentioned don't drink whole milk all the time. So what's your thoughts on dairy? Is dairy, yogurt, milk, you could do
Just-
low-fat, non-fat?
Yeah,
You know,
choose the
you know,
lower,
generally-
the lower fat versions. And if you're eating yogurt, make sure, hopefully, that it's plain and sweeten it with
Yeah.
something yourself, like
But
fruit.
Non-fat is okay?
Yeah, it would be better.
You guys prefer than low-fat?
You know,
I mean, will it still keep you at school? Because I've heard people say.
so yes, fat can improve satiety, but, you know, milk, dairy products also have a lot of protein in them, which also influence how full you feel. So I would always go for the lower fat versions. And with the yogurts, I always worry about the sugar because a lot of them are sweetened and people think, oh, this is healthy, it's a yogurt, but a lot of the times it's not. So make sure you look at the label to see if there's sugar. In terms of whether it's better non-fat or low fat, I mean, it's a toss-up. The calorie difference is pretty small. It just really depends on, like she was saying, how you eat overall in the day. If you eat overall healthy, but you have a glass of 2% milk instead of skim milk, you're gonna be fine. It's gonna be okay. Just don't do anything in excess, basically.
How about coconut milk and almond milk? Are they?
Well, coconut products have received a lot of boom in the media because people say that they're healthy and whatnot. They are high in saturated fat though, so, you know, keep your intake moderate. You can still probably have things with coconut milk and coconut oil, just don't do it every day. Almond milk is, you know, as long as it's not the sweetened kind, because I've seen some of the soy milks and they're so high in sugar, I mean, you'd be better off drinking normal milk, you know. So just look at the label, make sure you pick the unsweetened kind, things without any, you know, hopefully additives and whatnot. She likes to say, try to eat things that are fresh and whole and they come from the ground, you know. If it's in a package, then probably not. Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about salt and how much we should have in a day?
So the recommendations are pretty high, the 2,300 milligrams generally for the general population. If you have hypertension though, and you would have to go to the doctor to get that checked, it goes down to about 1,500. I would say personally, nothing over 2,000, and don't eat things that come in a package. Generally, people don't have problems with the salt shaker. You don't really tend to oversalt your food as much that way because you taste it too much. But if you're eating a lot of processed foods, then you get a lot of sodium from those sources. So just cut back on that and you should be fine. I don't think you would have a problem with sodium. And in athlete populations, you actually need a little bit more if you're out and you're sweating a lot to replace those losses. So, you know, if you're physically active, I wouldn't worry too much about your sodium, especially because physical activity helps with blood pressure regulation. So, yes.
What do you think of probiotics? Do you recommend them?
I mean, yeah, they're great, especially if you get them from food. I don't necessarily recommend having like pills. Some people think they're helpful, but if you're eating probiotics from yogurt and actual food products, then I think that's great to incorporate it into your diet. Not necessarily for athletics, but for digestion.
Can you explain what's probiotic?
So probiotic is a food that has bacteria, healthy bacteria in it. So, things like yogurt, they come with a bacterial population, and it helps kind of like, keep a healthy population of bacteria in your body, because actually, we have more bacteria in our body than we do human cells, which is really interesting. So researchers are still trying to find all the different ways that bacteria influence your body. There are also prebiotics, garbanzo beans being a great example. These are foods that feed the bacteria that already exist in your body and make them happy. So things with a lot of fiber are good for you because of that reason as well. Okay.
And I think it's important to note that there are some, natural probiotics, so, like Jen's saying, that you don't have to necessarily buy them from the pharmacy or GNC or something.
Yeah, they're expensive.
I mean, there's kimchi, there's kefir,
And
yogurt too, right?
yogurt.
And sauerkraut. So these are some things that you normally eat that you can get that from. And
The kimchi has a lot of sodium, right?
True. But generally when people eat kimchi, they have little tiny bits of kimchi as a side dish. They don't eat a huge amount, right? So.
yes,
He has a giant jar. Do you need the whole jar? He has a 5-pound jar. All right.
but I think it's important to note that, like we're just saying here, that if you're trying to get some particular nutrient, there could be a consequence of trying to get that nutrient from that particular source. Right? If you're going to eat a lot of nuts just to get your proteins and things, there's a lot of fat associated with that.
Including diarrhea.
Right, and then the side effects that you go over.
So just eat a varied diet is what he's saying, I think. Get sources from many different things. Don't just eat white rice. Put some vegetables in there as well.
Lentil is pretty good.
Lentils are great. They're my favorite. Basically my favorite
So that you
food.
undercook.
How about one last question?
Yeah.
I heard that there are good, good nuts, and then they are not as good nuts. And
So
that's true. I mean,
the salt is something, because a lot of the nuts are salted. So make sure you buy unsalted nuts.
well, I always buy unsalted.
Yeah.
And then I also heard that the cashews are not as good.
Almonds have a little bit more protein than cashews, but all nuts are great sources of fat for you, as well as they do have a little bit of protein. Almonds just are higher, but they're not. It doesn't mean that cashews are bad. Just eat a variety. I have a mixed nut case, unsalted, that has walnuts, almonds, cashews, everything. So, yeah,
How about pine nuts?
pine nuts. All the
I like these.
Okay, so the last thing I wanted to cover, which I think is really important, is thermal regulation, because you guys are out in the sun for a long time. So
Not lately.
I know San Francisco is a little bit colder than San Diego, which is where I come from, but it does get sunny and you are out for a while. So just make sure that you are drinking enough water, staying hydrated throughout the day. Wear clothes that allow you to sweat. Don't go in covered. Wear something that exposes your skin to the air so that you can sweat and get rid of the extra heat, because that's your body's way of regulating itself. Cold towels that you can put over your neck, things that'll help keep your body temperature down. If you are sweating a lot, then you could probably benefit from the electrolyte drinks that we were talking about with sodium in them as well. But most importantly, dress appropriately, drink enough water, be aware of how you're feeling, and if you feel very dehydrated or tired or lightheaded, just take a break, because your safety comes first. If it's very humid, this probably would never happen in San Francisco, but if it's very humid and hot and disgusting outside, it might be safer to not exercise that day, because you could get a heat stroke, and that would be sad.